So today we're going to be talking about political correctness in the video game industry. It's getting ridiculous at this point. I mean, the shit that we saw the other day with blind playthrough getting banned on Twitch, you know, that term blind playthrough, which means that you're going in blind, that you haven't played the game before, you don't have experience with it before. Oh no, it's offensive to blind people. We can't have that. We're going to ban that term because it's offensive. It's not politically correct. The thing I find the most ridiculous about PC culture is that most of the outrage that you see, it's people being outraged, people being offended on behalf of other people. Are you going to try to tell me that actual blind people were offended by the term blind playthrough? When, what point would a blind person even have on Twitch TV that they would be offended by something on Twitch on a platform that they can't use? Why would a blind person be on Twitch when they can't see the gameplay? Why would a blind person be on Twitch in the first place? That's like a deaf person with a Spotify account. Makes no fucking sense. None of it makes any sense. I can say that I took a shit last night, and that could be interpreted as being offensive towards people that suffer from constipation. I mean, everything you say these days is offensive, which is fucking retarded. Oh no. I said the R word, retard. Oh no. I'm such an awful person for saying that. I actually have a funny story related to that word. It's funny because I remember one of my friends on Facebook that I knew from high school. He made a post a few months ago. I forget what exactly the post was about, but he was saying, oh, this is fucking retarded. And then someone else that I knew from high school commented, and he was going off on this person, saying, how can you use that kind of language? This is so ableist. This is an awful thing for you to do. This is terrible. And he was pretty much like outraged over a silly post on Facebook because he said retard. Meanwhile, the person that was offended just 4 years ago was the biggest bully in high school. He treated everyone around him like shit, but now all of a sudden he's offended by hurtful language, which I find hilarious. But that's actually a very common thing that you will see with PC culture. The most PC people out there, you know, they always talk about how the world is such a terrible place and we need to be nicer to one another, we need to treat each other with kindness. That's why they're crusading for political correctness. But you'll notice that these PC assholes, they are actually some of the worst human beings that you will ever see. They talk about how we can't bully each other, we can't do this, we can't, but they're like the biggest bullies you will ever see, ever. Because if you don't do exactly what they say, if you don't comply with their shit, they will try to ruin your fucking life. They will cancel you, they will try to get you fired from your fucking job so you can't earn a living. It's fucking scary what has happened to society over the years, that we've gone to this point where every little thing you say can be interpreted as offensive, and if you say the wrong thing, you can potentially get your whole fucking life destroyed by these scumbags. I mean, it's awful. But in the context of gaming, I find it even more ridiculous because, I mean, I make videos, you could see violent video games in the background where I'm killing people and I'm engaging in violent acts, and you have people in the comment section every now and then that comment on my shit saying, you know, I like your content, but can you please stop saying fuck? Can you please stop using bad language? That actually happens a lot, especially on my second channel, where I mainly play Call of Duty, where guess what the objective of the game is? To kill people. So you're not offended by simulated violence, but you are offended by the word fuck. I'm trying to understand how that makes any fucking sense. Please, can someone in the comments explain to me how that works? But on the subject of bad language, this is another thing that's starting to happen. Never mind YouTube videos, how about the actual games that you're playing online? You're starting to have these companies that are really cracking down on offensive language or toxic behavior, whatever they want to phrase it as, where if you say the wrong thing, they will take your shit down. Blizzard is the big one, where if you say anything they don't like, they will take your whole account down and you will lose access to all your games and you will be fucked because they don't like what you have to say in a fucking game because people will be offended by it. Well, if you're so offended by what people are saying in a fucking game online, there's an easy solution. It's called the fucking mute button, motherfuckers. Seriously, why is that hard? Why do we have to go on a whole crusade against toxic language when if you don't like the toxic language, it's so easy. Mute the person. Then you don't have to hear it. Nobody should ever lose their account, lose access to all their games just because people were offended by the words that they were using in the game. That's just fucking wrong. That's terrible. Like, okay, if the person was, like, cheating or exploiting the game and doing terrible shit to make the game bad and to sabotage the experience, that's fine. But like I said, if the person is just saying terrible shit online, dude, there are people who say terrible shit in the real world. You're just gonna have to live with it. You're gonna have to deal with it. But if you don't want to deal with it, again, you have an option. You click on their name and you hit the fucking mute button. Why? Why is that so complicated? Ugh. But then when you talk about censoring the actual games themselves, because there is a lot of talk about video game censorship, because think of the children, they're being exposed to these games, and oh, it's so terrible, because if they see these games, they're gonna think violence is okay, they're gonna actually go out and steal people's cars, and rob banks, and pull off heists, like, what? Like, okay, so let me get this straight. For these video games that are rated M, in order to actually be able to buy those games, like, if a kid goes out to the store, to GameStop, they fucking card you, they check your ID, and find out if you're actually 17. If you're not 17, they won't sell the game to you. So the parent has to buy the game for the kid, or in the case of digital games, the mother has to give the credit card to the kid. And if the parents have no idea what their kids are buying and what they're playing, that's on them. That's on the parents to monitor what their kids are doing and what they're playing. And if they don't like what they see, then they can do something about it. But a lot of the parents that get outraged, the thing is, they're fucking deadbeats. They don't actually want to be parents and do what they're supposed to do. So they're relying on these companies to make decisions for them instead of actually looking out and seeing what the kids are playing. No, they don't want to be parents. I mean, let's be real. Most of these Karen cunts that get offended by violent content and offensive content in video games, they have no interest in being real parents and actually doing the responsible thing and taking care of their kids. The fucking Xbox is the babysitter for these kids. They just fucking go off all day doing whatever the fuck they do, and they just leave the kid with the Xbox all day, and that's parenting to them. But I guess being outraged about violent shit in video games, it makes the parents feel like, oh, I'm actually doing my job, I'm actually a good parent. That's the thing with all these PC scumbags, is that they think political correctness automatically equals good person. Like, you can't be politically correct and be a bad person. No. Being PC is a good thing. It means I'm a good person. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, but when it comes to censoring violent video games and just talking about censorship in general, I mean, I'm the most anti-censorship person that you could possibly imagine, because, I mean, even when it comes to games that are just, like, really fucked up, like Active Shooter, which was pretty much a school shooting simulator, oh my god, how can you say that that game should not be censored, how it should not be banned? Because it's not the decisions of these corporations and the government or whoever, whatever entity is involved with regulating content in games. It's not their decision to make. It's only your decision. And if you decide, I'm sure most people would decide they do not want to play a game like that, that's fine. Then don't fucking play it. Don't buy it. Don't support the developers of that game. But you finding the content of a game offensive does not also mean that nobody else should have access to that game. No, it's your individual decision to make, or at least that's how it should be. I don't know about you guys, but I was absolutely disgusted by the so-called video game journalists that were throwing games like Active Shooter under the bus, saying this game deserves to be censored because it's offensive. But that's like the whole talking point of people going against the video game industry for like the past 30 years, ever since we've had more violent video games come into the market that are considered to be offensive and it's dangerous for the kids. The video game media has been defending the industry against those fucking assholes. When it comes to games like Active Shooter, oh no, like they just give in to those talking points. All of a sudden, video games can be too violent, they can be too offensive, and they can lead to kids actually going out and causing the violence they see on the screen. Like, they were defending Kotaku and all these other websites, they defend Grand Theft Auto because there's no way a kid's gonna play Grand Theft Auto and rob a bank, but they also, at the same breath, say that Active Shooter should be censored because a kid can play the game and want to do a school shooting. There's no logic behind it. That's the common thing about everything with political correctness. There's just no logic. The logic is not there. And let's talk about sex. Why is it that those games are outright banned? You can't play those types of games on console. You can on PC, of course, because anyone can release their game on PC, so most of those adult-rated games are available on PC, but Sony, Microsoft, and of course Nintendo do not want any of those games to be available on their platform. But we have games like Doom where you're literally cutting people in half, you're ripping their limbs out of their chest, or how about Mortal Kombat? I mean, the fatality scenes are brutal in those games. But you can't have a game where you do sex because sex is gross, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand that one either, where you can play these brutal, gory games, but anything sexual is no good. Well, that's definitely another part of political correctness in gaming, because it's definitely some type of feminist thing where anything that sexualizes women in any way, it's objectifying to women and it should not be allowed. Even games where you're not, like, actually performing sexual acts. You think of a game where the woman, a character in the game that's a woman is, you know, she looks sexy, maybe there's a little bit of cleavage hanging out or whatever. That's offensive to all the ugly women with horse faces. I mean, that's a subtle way of what they're actually trying to say. Because even when they do get what they want, when you do have that diversity, when you have female characters in the game world, they can't be too attractive, because women can't be beautiful with feminism. I mean, they're the same crowd that doesn't shave their legs, doesn't shave their armpits because it's empowering to women and they bleed out their vaginas to protest Donald Trump. Of course, these are the same people that we're dealing with, so we can't be surprised that they don't want attractive women in video games. And that's another thing I just can't understand. Why is it a bad thing for women to be sexualized in video games, but at the same time we can glorify violence? Like, sex is something that most people do. Why is it such a taboo thing? I mean, yeah, of course, sexual acts are censored in television, movies, and all the other media, but the difference is they're not outright censored. You can go to websites that have that type of content, but if you're a gamer, it's a lot more difficult to access that type of content in video game format because of the heavy censorship that we have in the industry related to that type of content, because it's not politically correct to sexualize women. And the new thing that we're also seeing in wake of the George Floyd protests that occurred over the summer is that it's also not politically correct to have police being portrayed in a positive way in a video game. Remember all that virtue signaling that these corporations were doing in wake of the protests? Remember Activision, they were blastering Black Lives Matter all over Call of Duty and all their games. Remember Epic Games? They removed police cars from Fortnite. But these are also the same companies that have strong ties to the Chinese government. Remember Blitzchung, that Hearthstone player that got banned by Activision Blizzard? He got fined. He got removed from the Hearthstone tournament because he spoke out against what was going on in Hong Kong and what still is going on in Hong Kong, where the police brutality over there against the protesters is crazy. It's objectively worse what's going on in Hong Kong than anything in the United States, and that's just the truth. And that's not me trying to say that, oh, the United States is a perfect country. It's not me trying to kind of like brush aside what goes on here, but it's fake wokeness. That's what I'm trying to say, that these companies that are all woke and they're all politically correct, and they're like, oh, look at us, we say Black Lives Matter, we don't believe in glorifying the police. But you do glorify the Hong Kong police because you censor people that speak out against what's going on over there. So fuck you, Activision, and fuck you, Epic. You have no problem doing business with a country that has literal concentration camps, but then you expect us to believe that you really care about black lives, that you really care about human rights. And that's what really pissed me off about that. Not necessarily that I disagree with the message that they're putting out there, that Black Lives Matter. Of course Black Lives Matter. But these corporations do not give a fuck about human rights at all. The only thing they care about is making money. That's why they continue to do business with a country that commits horrible human rights violations against its people. And guess what? They can't say Black Lives Matter. They can't say that they're against police brutality, because in a country like the United States, we have freedom of speech, or at least we're supposed to. This PC culture definitely puts that up in the air, but we're still a lot more free than communist China. And if we want to stay that way, we definitely have to fight back against PC culture. Look, I'm sure some of the people that consider themselves to be politically correct, they think they have good intentions, but they're just fucking stupid. They don't understand context. When someone says blind playthrough, they're not saying fuck blind people. When I say you're fucking retarded, I'm not saying fuck people who have limitations to them. I don't even know what the politically correct thing for that is anymore. But I'm just tired of this shit. I'm sick of people getting offended over literally everything, and when that shit carries over into video games, I get even more frustrated, because not only do I want to escape from all the bullshit in reality, like political correctness, they bring that shit into video games, that pisses me off, but it's also, when you engage in acts of censorship that naturally come from political correctness, it destroys the integrity and the quality of video games as an art form, and it kills me to see that happening, but it's something that we've been seeing as we've had more political correctness in the video game industry, and it needs to stop. Enough is enough.